Okay, today we're diving into a book that honestly turned a lot of conventional wisdom about money completely on its head. I'm talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's built on this one really powerful kind of counterintuitive idea that the rich have a totally different relationship with money than the rest of us. And you know what? It all kicks off with a story about two very, very different dads. So the whole book is framed around these two father figures in Kiyosaki's life. On one hand, you have his actual father, who he calls his poor dad. Now, this guy was super educated, had a safe, secure government job, but he was always struggling with money. And then, on the other hand, you have his rich dad. This was his best friend's father, an eighth grade dropout who ended up becoming one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. Crazy, right? And right here, this is where you see the core conflict, the two worldviews clashing. Poor dad's advice is probably what most of us heard growing up. Study hard, get good grades, so you can find a good company to work for. But rich dad's advice was the complete opposite. He said, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. That single difference in thinking, that's the key to the whole book right there. You know that old saying, the love of money is the root of all evil? Well, Rich Dad just flipped that completely on its head. He argued the exact opposite. He believed it was the lack of money that was the root of all evil. Think about it. The stress, the desperation, the bad choices people make when they're broke, that, he said, is the real source of the problem. And here's the kicker. It wasn't about how much money they made. Both of these guys actually had really good incomes. The real difference, the thing that decided their entire financial future, was their mindset. It was all about how they thought about money. Those thoughts led to their actions, and at the end of the day, one mindset led to a life of financial struggle, while the other, it led to incredible wealth. All right, so Rich Dad's first big lesson, maybe the most important one, was all about seeing and getting out of this trap he called the rat race. And the scary part is, it's a cycle that most people are stuck in for their entire lives, and they don't even know it. So what powers this whole thing? According to Rich Dad, it's two simple emotions that control our lives: fear and greed. Here's how it works. First, fear gets you. The fear of not being able to pay your bills, right? That fear is what makes you get up and go to work every day. But then you get that paycheck, and the second emotion kicks in: greed. Or maybe a better word is desire. You start dreaming about all the cool stuff you can buy. And that desire, it traps you in this endless loop. You get up, you go to work, you get paid, you pay your bills, and maybe buy some nice things. But pretty soon, your expenses creep up to match what you earn. And boom, the fear is back. So what do? You work harder. You chase that promotion. You get a raise. And then, desire comes knocking again, and you spend more. It's just like a hamster on a wheel, chasing a carrot on a stick that you can never, ever reach. So how do you get off the wheel? Well, the first lesson to escaping the whole trap is actually pretty simple to say, but it's a huge mental shift. The rich don't work for money. Instead, they have their money work for them. The goal isn't just to work harder for a bigger paycheck. No, the goal is to build a system where your money is the one doing the heavy lifting, making you an income that has nothing to do with you clocking in and out of a job. Okay, so if the big goal is to have your money work for you, how in the world do you actually do that? Well, Rich Dad said it all comes down to one incredibly simple rule, a rule that he was convinced is totally missing from school. His definition of an asset was just beautifully simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. That's it. Forget all the complicated financial jargon you've ever heard. All that matters is one thing. Which way is the cash flowing? And you guessed it, a liability is the exact opposite. It's anything that takes money out of your pocket. Again, that's the only thing that matters. Don't overthink it. Is money coming in or is money going out? This one distinction is the absolute core of everything. Okay, let's see what this looks like in the real world. Here's the cash flow pattern for a poor person. Money comes in from their job and it goes right back out to pay for everything. Taxes, rent, food, you name it. But look closely. The asset column is totally empty. There's no engine, nothing there to generate more money. Now let's look at the middle class. The pattern starts the same, but they add a dangerous new twist. They take their income and buy liabilities that they think are assets. Things like a mortgage, a car loan, credit card debt. All their hard-earned money just goes to paying off this debt. So their money isn't working for them. It's working for the bank. And finally, this is the cash flow of the rich. See the difference? They focus all their energy on one thing and one thing only, building up that asset column. They buy things that generate income, rental properties, stocks, businesses. And that income from their assets is what pays for their lifestyle. Their main source of cash isn't their job, it's the stuff they own. So it really all comes down to this. Rule number one, you have to know the difference between an asset and a liability, and then you have to buy assets. That's the entire game. The poor and middle class buy liabilities they think are assets. The rich know the difference, and they buy real assets. According to Kiyosaki, if you can truly master this one idea, you're on the path to financial freedom. All right, let's get into what is, without a doubt, the most controversial idea in the whole book. Seriously, get ready for this one because it challenges the very foundation of the American dream. And it's this. Rich Dad argued that the house you live in is not an asset. I mean, just think about that for a second. Is your home your biggest asset? Every financial planner, your parents, your friends, everyone tells you that buying a home is the best investment you can make, that it's your number one asset. But let's go back to Rich Dad's super simple definitions. Does a home actually fit the bill? Okay, let's just apply the rule. Does a house put money in your pocket or take it out? Well, you've got the mortgage payment, that's cash going out. You've got property taxes, cash out, insurance, out, maintenance, repairs, money going out. It doesn't put a single dollar in your pocket. So, by that simple, strict definition of cash flow, the house you live in is a liability. And it's not just about the money you're spending every month. Kiyosaki points out these huge hidden costs, what economists call opportunity costs. Think about it. All the money tied up in your house, your down payment, your equity, that is capital that is not being invested in real assets that could be growing and making you more money. It also means you lose out on the chance to actually learn how to be an investor because your money is just sitting there. Okay, so if the key to escaping the rat race is to buy assets, what kind of assets should you actually be buying? This brings us to the final, really important lesson from Rich Dad. And he had a great name for it. Mind your own business. To get this point across, Kiyosaki tells this great story about Ray Kroc, the guy who founded McDonald's. Apparently, Kroc was once asked what business he was in, and you'd think he'd say hamburgers, right? Nope, he said, "My business is not in hamburgers, my business is real estate." See, his profession was selling burger franchises, but his real business was buying up the valuable land underneath every single one of those restaurants. That's where the real lasting wealth came from. And that's the key idea right there. There's a difference between your profession and your business. Your profession is your 9 to 5, the thing you do to earn a paycheck. But your business, that's your asset column. The goal isn't necessarily to quit your job tomorrow. The goal is to keep your job, but use the money you make to fund your business, to buy more and more assets, until one day your job becomes totally optional. So at the end of the day, Rich Dad, Poor Dad really leaves us with one big question to ask ourselves. It challenges every one of us to look at our own bank statements, not just as a list of numbers, but as a story. So what story does your cash flow tell? Is it a story about working harder and harder just to get by and pay the bills? Or is it a story about building something, an asset column that's working for you? Because actually looking at that story, that's the very first step to changing it.